Now we are live.
Are we live? I don't know. I don't think so.
It says live in the top. There we
There
go.
we go. I'll bet we're live now.
I bet we are live now. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Chad.
All right. Well, welcome to, I believe, the third installment of Virtually Live, the Savannah Voice Festival 2020,
Third day.
third day virtually live. And it's a royal day. We are prepping a royal feast, you could say, not of food, but of music.
Yeah. New opera, and we're going to tell you about it later. And it's all in the context of things going on with the education program that goes on all year at the Voice Festival.
Fantastic. And we couldn't do that without some of our wonderful sponsors. So for this particular project, we want to, Michael and I especially want to thank Jane Gilchrist. Jane has been involved so enthusiastically with this program. We're going to talk a little bit later about the Zoom calls we've been having and conferences we've been having with the students. And she has been present for all of those. So Jane, if you're watching, thank you so much. Even if you're not, thank you so much. We are really excited to have you backing this project. And before we go on with this program, we just want to remind you that at 6 o'clock, stay around for Zachary Shebek, fabulous tenor, and he will be singing some tenor favorites. So for now, we're going to talk about the royal feast, basically, and how this came to be. So 2 years ago, Maria Zuvez, executive director, myself, got together with John Tisbert at Esther F. Garrison School of Visual and Performing Arts with a wonderful idea that we create an arts immersion. Well, it started with a camp and then it evolved into a production. So the first show with which we did that was a little opera called Hansel and Gretel, in which I came down to the festival, came down to Savannah about 3 weeks in advance, and I led the elementary and middle school students in a scenic design camp where we built the sets. I assisted John Tisbert in prepping the children's choir, and we educated them on all aspects of opera and how it truly is the total art. And these students engaged so beautifully and so enthusiastically. Many of the ideas weren't mine. They were theirs, and who better to help me direct as the stage director and the education director, um, who better to help me direct that shows like Hansel and Gretel and then subsequently The Little Prince than children, which are stories meant, or you could say originally written for children, however have universal themes that speak to all of us. So that started with Hansel and Gretel, and then the subsequent subsequent year, as I said, the subsequent festival, we produced Little Prince, which Michael was the conductor and music director for that program, and that was wonderful engaging with those students that way, was it?
Oh, they were fantastic. And there was an army of them,
There
too.
was an army. I think there were. I was talking to John Tisbert that I think there were over 60 children on stage when I showed up to rehearsal that day, and I saw all those enthusiastic faces. I was like, speaking of preparing a royal feast, that was
Yeah, and it gave us a chance to use and get to learn the ins and outs of that wonderful performing arts center that they
yeah,
have there, too.
the
Which is,
Yamacross Center for Performing Arts, just wonderful.
yeah, and it's a really nice facility. I mean, it's got good acoustics, pretty good, great sight lines, too. So,
Absolutely.
for the audience.
Absolutely. And we made full use of it for that production. We had to. So, when we were thinking about ways to evolve this particular initiative, we thought, well, what are some other ways with which we can engage these students to make opera more accessible to them? Well, we thought, well, let's have them write it with us. So after choosing the season, the 2020 season, we knew La Cenerentola by Rossini, the, his telling of Cinderella was going to be on the books. So we wanted to do a sequel or a sister opera, not unlike what we did with I Pagliacci and Birthday Clown, which was so beautiful last year. That was really wonderful. So we wanted to do something akin to that this year. Um, And we engaged the same school, SRF Garrison School Visuals, pardon me, SRF Garrison School of Visual and Performing Arts, to the theater majors as well as the choir to help us write the show as well as come up with an additional storyline. And it manifested itself sort of as a sequel. When I first started working with the students, and Michael came with me, we were on one of our normal outreach tours in the SCCPSS system, the Savannah Chatham County Public School System. Say that 5 times fast, right? Um, and we engaged with those students, and they started peppering us with ideas and ways to make Cinderella not only us updated but relevant to them, and uh, it kind of formed into a sequel, more or less.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it takes place right after. I mean, the the Rossini Cinderella, which a lot of you are familiar with, doesn't have some of the things that younger Americans, or really any Americans, think of when they have Cinderella. I mean, Cinderella is has stepsisters and that issue, and she's threadbare and sleeps by the hearth and all that sort of stuff. But the American Cinderella has mice or critters, magic, maybe a coach and a pumpkin, a fairy godmother.
The
Yeah,
typical aspects of it that
right.
we associated with the Disney story.
And the Rossini interpretation of the tale is much more, I don't know, realistic, or in some way, just in some ways more down to earth, and doesn't have those kind of fantastical elements. And so, in working with Glenda Lanier's drama students,
Mhm.
uh, they were like, "Well, where are the mice? You can't do Cinderella without mice, or you can't. Where's the magic?" And so they very much wanted to have those kinds of elements, because we have the student performers too, and the student designers. I mean,
Right.
it's a very, very collaborative project down to the real roots of it. And so we want to make sure that the kids feel like they're in a kind of Cinderella.
Right.
And so we're going to do the Rossini Cinderella, maybe, I don't know, an hour or so of it, something
Sure.
like that. Take an intermission, and then we're going to have this, I don't know, 25, 35-minute opera that's kind of a sequel to take that will follow immediately after, in a sense, the close of the curtain to La Cenerentola.
Exactly, and the whole idea was to engage with the students in a way that allowed them to feel like they were telling their own story. Since Cinderella is such a fun story, and I'm so glad that they, especially as the stage director, that they chose to add those fantastical elements back in. When Rossini wrote La Cenerentola, he took out many of those elements because they didn't have the theatrical resources at the time to engage.
The budget.
Yeah, the budget. the To engage large mice,
Right.
maybe,
Right,
or the
and we
coach.
told the kids, "No, let's be careful. Let's not, no dinosaurs. We don't want any dinosaurs or giraffes or anything like that. No extremely large animals that we're going to have to put on stage. But things at a smaller scale, I think they're going to work just fine in
Yeah,
the context
yeah.
of the show." Should we talk about the plot of the show, or?
I think that would be
Yeah.
lovely. I think that'd be lovely.
So at the end of La Cenerentola, there's a celebration, and what is going to happen, and opera plots are always hard to explain, and this is no exception. So bear with me here a little bit. The 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 kingdom is having a series of parties. You know, it's kind of like Mardi Gras, where there are all these balls going on at the same period of time, or Memphis had a cotton carnival that had that kind of thing. So there's a bunch of presidential inaugurations have this too.
Sure.
So that night, everybody's celebrating, and there's the royal party at the castle and all that sort of stuff. But every other part of the city, or indeed the whole little country, is having a party too. And so, at one of these, at a kind of dingy location, at an old abandoned warehouse in the by the docks, kind of a dark and abandoned building, there are all these critters that are celebrating the wedding of Cinderella and the prince. And so, and this is again kind of part of the stuff that we worked out with the kids, is that it turns out that the the Cinderella lived in this, not it was in not such nice conditions in the forest and all that sort of stuff, and she was able to befriend a lot of these critters.
Hmm.
And the way she did that in the plot we have in the new opera is that she got bit by these magical spiders that live in the hearth. I mean, she's by the hearth. Cinderella, that La Cinderella starts by the hearth. And so these spiders confer the gift of being able to understand animal languages.
Right.
And so there we have a kind of magic element that is kind of missing from the La Cenerentola. And so Cinderella all along has been able to communicate with forest creatures, whether they be spiders or chipmunks or mice or
Hmm.
geese or ducks or whatever. And so the the mice go to see Alidoro because in La Cenerentola there's Alidoro who's kind of a philosopher they say, and I've kind of made him into a sort of I don't know alchemist, a philosophe, and
And he took the place of the fairy godmother.
yes, yeah,
Right.
he has some of those elements. And so the mice went to see Counselor Alidoro and said, "Hey, Alidoro," because Alidoro's figured out all this magic spider stuff too, is that, "Hey, Alidoro, we know this beautiful girl, and we hear that you're looking for you've been told by the king that the prince needs to get married or else, and we've got the perfect person for you." And so Cinderella La Cenerentola starts with Alidoro showing up at Cenerentola's abode in the forest. And the reason it happens, it turns out in the sequel, is that the mice told him. I mean, the critters told him to check out this beautiful girl, this wonderful Angelina, that's her name, in the forest. And so this group of critters is pretty sure that after the royal wedding, uh, Angelina, who has been invited with Ramiro and the wedding party, is going to make it to this party because of the sense of gratitude, and so she's going to make it to this party. So the Royal Feast opera, this little sequel, is going to be about the fact that uh, La Ramiro and Angelina are going to this party where all the critters are waiting for her. But the problem is of course, is that in this group, Alidoro and Angelina are the only people who realize that critters can talk.
Right.
I mean, all the other people, the prince has never been bitten by this spider, or the stepsisters have never been bitten by the spider. The Don Magnifico, who's coming along for the ride, um, he's never been bit by a spider, so they don't know about any of this stuff. And so when they show up, they're in this room full of weird critters who are just gibbering at them. So that's kind of the, the how the storyline operates, and of course it's going to have a happy ending. I think
Of course.
the kids insisted on that too as well, and so that's how the piece is going to proceed on through the plot.
And what's so wonderful, and if I may sing your praises here a little bit, what's so wonderful about the way Michael has set up this opera is that he's followed the traditions of Rossini so beautifully, and not only in the vocalism but in the structure of the opera.
Yeah, I mean, that I'm prior to speed dating, I was the best. The piece of mine that I was best known for is an opera called Buoso's Ghost, and Buoso's Ghost is a sequel to Puccini's Johnny Schicchi. And so in that opera, I channeled a lot of Puccini. And when Maria and I and Chad, we were all talking about this, we want to channel a lot of the Rossini style in this piece. And Rossini has this great vocalism, the leaps and runs and all that sort of
The
stuff.
fioritura.
The fioritura, exactly. Rossini has kind of the good sort of the Rossini comedies have a wonderful kind of goofiness to them
Hmm.
that is really not replicated quite so successfully in almost any other opera composer. And so you have that to rely on, and so there's all these kinds of things. And so having done most of the Rossini comedies either as a rehearsal accompanist or conductor or producer, those things are easy to put under the skin of the piece. And so there will be, yes, there will be pieces that are written that sound like Michael Ching or whatever that sounds like. And then there are pieces that actually are literally quotations, just lifted, you know, from the opera that we are going to use and paraphrase and quote in the, and so we want to make that smooth transition. We don't want anyone to go, oh, bang, all of a sudden,
Right.
where are we? Yeah, it's gonna, we have this feel that will remain Rossini. We have a cat in the theater.
I was going to say, we have a,
yes,
speaking of critters,
yes,
I think one of
there
your
are-
critters has joined
there are
us.
two critters that live here, and one of them may make herself known at some point in time. We can hear her complaining about the situation. Let me see if I can even find you an example. Of
Yeah, that would be wonderful, Michael.
Those kinds of things that we use in the show that are literally taken out of the Cinderella. Um, um, You would think that since I wrote it, I would know where these things are, but that's always. Oh well, I mean, um, at the beginning here, when the wedding party is being dragged through this seedy part of town. The girls are all still in their gowns and high heels and all that sort of stuff. And Magnifico is like, "Why didn't we take the carriage? You know, why are we? Where are we going?" And even Prince Ramiro doesn't know what this is all about. And so Alidoro is singing here, la 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 la, what a lovely wedding. I always cry at weddings, such a magnificent reception. So that's an example of something that's just taken right out of La Cenerentola. And there are other pieces too that are going to slip in and out as the opera progresses. Can I play something from the show?
I would love for you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this is an unusual thing. We were supposed to have a little workshop in New York City during the Opera Week in March, and we didn't get a chance to do that. So really, in a sense, I mean, I've played a little bit of this for Chad. I've played a little bit of this for Maria, some of it for Jessica Best, but not. I mean, really very little. So you're hearing something kind of for the first time here. So this is a little section where Angelina realizes that this is a huge opportunity for all of the critters in the world, four-legged, two-legged, eight-legged, whatever, to come together and become a kind of peaceable kingdom. And so that the reign of Angelina and Ramiro has this huge potential to change the world. And so she says this here. My husband and future king, now you understand these beings, fellow citizens of our earth. Each makes a contribution, each one has worth. All of us can live together, sharing land and sea and sky. By example, we can show that we should live and let live side by side. A peaceful world should be what we strive for, hand in hand. If we plan, both of us try to show how it's done. So it becomes this big concertato ensemble where everybody's realizing that this is a huge potential to, I don't know, change the way that the world works.
Right.
You know, I don't know how that works for vegetarians. We don't get into that.
So, you know, I bet many of you are wondering, we talked about the songwriting. First off, thank you, Michael. That was great. We talked about the songwriting workshops, and you might be wondering how we did that. Well, know that most of it was done over Zoom conferencing, and we had to get pretty ingenious, useful about how we navigated our time with the students and still allowed them to put forth a product that they felt good about, um, that they love. And after some coaxing, they did a they did a wonderful job of presenting some.
Yeah, I've done a lot of songwriting workshops over the years, and this one, which is a little more complicated, is when you add the dramatic context onto it, that's different. It creates a whole new set of opportunities and complications. And so
Right.
the basically the pieces that I've assigned to the kids are like, take the point of view of being the critters. Are you a goose or are you a mouse or whatever? And what is it that you want to say to Angelina when she
Right.
shows up? And so what we have is we have an excerpt that we're going to play for you that was done by the kids. I would say, I mean, Chad is my witness. I think that they really did write 90% of this.
Certainly.
John, it was Chad was there. John Tisbert was there. Mandy
Matson.
Matson was
Yeah.
there. But this is all kid written, and they did a wonderful job.
We're happy for you, we're sad to see you go. We hope you won't forget us now that you're a princess.
I'm back there waiting for the snow. It's something we'll never forget. We were stranded in the forest. Then she came to save us.
We're happy for you, we're sad to see you go. We hope you won't forget us now that you're a princess.
You fed us at the pond. We hope you won't be gone for long. We'll wait for all that time and honk and quack our rhyme.
We're happy for you, we're sad to see you go. We hope you won't forget us now that you're a princess. You lost your favorite hat. We found it where it's blue. We helped you from the sky and serenaded you. We're happy for you, we're sad to see you go. We hope you won't forget us now that you're a princess. I am a lazy cat. I'll miss your constant care. You took me to your room and pet my fluffy hair. We're happy for you, we're sad to see you go. We hope you won't forget us now that you're a princess.
That's it.
That's
Isn't
it.
that cool? They wrote two of them, and we might even have time to write some more.
Absolutely.
So it's a really fun thing that's going to be interpreted into the show.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so with that in mind, I know we're going to wrap up here a little bit because we need to go over to Zach's wonderful recital. But before we do, I want to again thank Jane Gilchrist for helping make this possible. I want to thank all the students and teachers at the Esther F. Garrison School of Visual and Performing Arts. And we look forward to making this project even more wonderful. So in the heart of a royal feast, we know that Jorge Parodi, the wonderful maestro, gave a fantastic lecture on Don Giovanni last night. So we wanted to end with a little live music. So we're going to do just that. And Michael's going to play the accompaniment on
The
the
melodica.
melodica.
And we do all this strolling around Savannah, and this is just a way of giving us a chance to kind of reminisce about what we get to do live sometimes. One of these days, there are going to be 4 or 5 of us on the music staff, and we're going to do something grand with this stuff. So here we go.
Non esser gioia mia come crudele, lasciati almen vedere mio bell'amore. Wonderful, bravo. Great. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Virtually Live, prepping a royal feast, and we hope to see you around Savannah and around in person very soon. Until then, stay safe. Thank you all so much.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye now.